because there's bacteria involved in that. There's fecal matter in that cookie. It's tainted. It's not pure. So guess what? In your life, is there a smidge of compromise in your life? You think that's pleasing to the Lord? Hey YouTube, long time no talk. It is a January Saturday morning. I had to take my wife to work because she was a little scared to drive. The snow came down and she's intimidated by it. And honestly, the roads aren't horrible. So it was an inconvenience, but that's part of being a husband, a grandpa, a dad. It's all good. After she got to work, here is my issue is that if it snowed really bad and I had to drive, I mean, usually it's about 30-35 minutes each way. So if I had to drive an hour and a half because the snow was so bad to get through, if that were the case, I'd be 3 hours out of my day. It's like, dude, my time's worth more than that. Now, that's purely selfish, and that's, looking at personal interest over my wife. I understand. So before you criticize, I get it. So I took her, and after she got to work, a co-worker who quit passed away. And he was 54, so about 5 years older than me and my wife. He seemed to be in good health, and he was a backslidden Christian. And, these things happen without any kind of warning. Death. And this was a guy who had a good heart. It seems as if he believed in God, but he got hurt by the church, and he was backslidden. And my wife would share the gospel with him. She would witness to him. She told him to get right with God. If you know my wife, she lays it out the way it is. That's one of the reasons why I married her, was that she just tells it the way it is and doesn't polish over, and that's a blessing. And she's been a blessing and continues to be a blessing. So we're going on 30 years of marriage this year. Praise the Lord. So where am I going with this video? Because I'm driving back home. I got some studying to do, and I wanted to do a video. It's been a while. And so this one's going to be on death. It's appointed once for a man or a woman to die, and then the judgment. I believe that's in Hebrews, New Testament. You're going to die. We're all going to die. I have a story involved with death. I've got a few of them. This one in particular has to do with cancer, and maybe you can relate, having a physical condition or ailment that's life-threatening. I had this, I was 35, so 14 years ago this year. I had a tumor the size of a grapefruit next to my heart that about took my life. It was called a non-seminoma germ cell tumor. That thing about took my life. And what I remember of it is that everything in my life shut down, but everybody else's life kept on going. I was becoming self-employed during that time. My income was starting to go on an upward trajectory, and then I couldn't work anymore because I was sick. And so my life came to a halt, but bad things kept happening, and good things. I got through a chemo treatment, and for those of you that don't like chemo or against chemo, I know. In retrospect, I've got some other ideas on chemo, but nonetheless, thank the Lord I'm still here, and I'm not planning on going anywhere for another 30 years. But again, part of this video is you don't know, and I don't know when I'm going to have my last moment, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So back to cancer. So here I was after a chemo treatment. I was sitting in my recliner next to my golden retriever. My golden retriever puppy, her name is Sandy, and she's no longer with us. She passed away. Yeah, talk about death there. That death tore me up. But we talk about life kept on going, man. And so here I am. My life came to a halt because I'm battling for my life. I got back from chemo. I'm sitting in my chair. Turns out my daughters ended up with lice. And yes, they take a bath and shower every day. They're grown up now. But it turns out they were hanging out with kids that don't. And end up with head lice. And so my wife's all worried about me. I can't work. You know, again, 14 years ago. Kids got lice, and she's putting mayonnaise in their hair trying to get rid of the lice in the middle of all the other life, because we had 5 kids. You know, one special needs, one had ADD. You know, it's like life kept on happening. And my life was coming to a standstill for a little bit. It's like, what's going on? What else happened? Oh, the refrigerator broke down. I'm like, you serious? This is a new refrigerator. I'm going through a life-threatening cancer. I'm fighting for my life. My refrigerator breaks down. You kidding me? So folks, I guess that's point number 1. And also, most of the time, when someone dies that you're not that familiar with, or you don't know who they are, or maybe a tragic event happens across the world, there's really no emotion involved in it from my point of view. Maybe there should be, but when hundreds and thousands of people die from like a hurricane or an earthquake, I don't think much of it. I think about it, and I said, man, that's horrible. But it doesn't really hit home. It doesn't really cause me to stop and think. But when something happens in our life, everything comes to a halt, but everyone else just keeps going, right? And so my point in this is someday you're gonna die. And everyone's life is gonna keep going. Now, those that are nearest to you, theirs is gonna come to a screeching halt, because they love you, they care for you, they're going to miss you. Those that are born again and saved are going to rejoice. If you're a Christian and you're serving God and you enter into heaven, in a sense, they're going to rejoice because they're going to see you again someday, and you've entered into your rest. You're going to get your reward. And so there's some rejoicing there, but there's others may be lamenting because they're going to miss you. They're going to miss your presence. If you think about a wife depending on her husband to fix things around the house or to bring home the bacon, and especially if you don't have any kind of life insurance and you haven't prepared for your death, yeah, there's going to be some lamenting and some sorrow involved with that. But the second point I wanted to bring up is friends, you don't know when you're going to die. You don't have any clue. Now, let me qualify that. Some listening or watching this, maybe you've got a clue because you're fighting for your life. And the doctor said you have X number of days to live. Maybe you have a clue. So out of anyone listening to this, you out of all people should be right with God. You should be ready to meet your Maker, because you know. Everyone else listening to this is your warning, is that you're not guaranteed right now. I mean, freak things happen to everybody. And you say, well, I'm pretty lucky, things don't happen to me like that. Well, just wait. You've got a lot more life to live. Bad things happen to everybody, and they might just happen to you. Actually, they will happen to you eventually if you live long enough. And you will die someday for some reason, right? People say, well, I'm pretty healthy, I take care of myself. You know, everyone dies from something. You know, when your heart stops in your 80s or 90s or 100, it stops for a reason, right? When they come take you away, they take you away because you're dead. And you're dead because something stopped working in your body. And that's going to happen. And so I'd recommend taking care of yourself for one, right? Take care of your health, work out, make sure you're eating right, eat foods that contribute towards good health. You know, what you feed. In fact, I strongly believe in sowing and reaping. In what you sow right now, you're going to reap in the future. If you're sowing destruction, you're eating horrible foods, guess what? That's going to impact your health. It may not be right now, but in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, man, it's gonna screw you up. You better make sure you know what you're eating. You better make sure that you know what you're doing with that stuff. Folks, it's gonna come a time that we're gonna die. There's coming a time. So thankfully, I'm turning 49 this year. I thank God for it. I've got another 14 years. If this was in the early 1800s or early 1900s, I probably wouldn't be alive right now with the kind of cancer that I had. So I rejoice in the fact that I'm here. I rejoice that I have to take my wife to work, even though it's an inconvenience. But in retrospect, what if she wasn't here, man? You know, what if she had passed away? You know, what if I wasn't here? What would she do? I mean, these are all things to consider, folks. You know, we're not promised tomorrow. We don't have any promise of today. We have no promise of tomorrow. We have a promise in the Word of God that it's appointed once for a man or a woman to die, and then we're going to be judged. What about you, my friend? Are you ready? Are you ready to die? Or are you living for the moment? Are you living for the paycheck? Are you living for the thrill? Are you living for everything but Jesus Christ? You know, at the end of the day, me and you, we're going to die. And we're going to face Jesus Christ. We're going to have to make an account of our life. And it's not automatic that you're going to go to heaven. This guy that passed away, I started the video with, he may be in hell right now. He may be. You know, Jesus said that if you're lukewarm, that he'll spew you out of his mouth. The lukewarm won't make it into heaven, folks. Are you lukewarm today? How is your faith? How hot are you for the Lord? How hot is your faith burning right now? These are all things for us to consider, especially when someone near my age passes away. That's a sobering thing. I don't know if you can see the snow. Pretty. Roads are clear though. It's a sobering thing, people. Are you ready? So how do you get ready is the question. How do you prepare your heart? Well, you and I know. That's the thing. We try to fool ourselves and say, I'm right with God. You know, a little bit of sin is okay. You know, a little bit of leaven. Jesus said a little bit of leaven leavens the whole lump. Little bit of compromise. You say, you know, I don't think God's concerned about that. Well, let me ask you a quick question, and I'm borrowing this from someone on Facebook that I heard this, and I thought, man, this is good. Let's say I want to make some cookies, and since I'm on the ketogenic diet, I'd say I want to make keto cookies, and I go in the backyard and I just take a little smidge, like let's say an eighth of a teaspoon of dog poop, and I put it in the mixture of the cookie dough, just a little bit, just bitty, and then I mix it all up. Make sure I got all the sweeteners in there that are ketogenic, of course. Get it all ready to roll, bake them all, and they probably taste just fine, right? I mean, would you want one? They're probably sweet. They probably taste fine. Would you want a keto poo-poo cookie? A keto poo-poo cookie? No! We're not gonna want a keto poo-poo cookie. Disgusting. Why? Because there's bacteria involved in that There's fecal matter in that cookie. It's tainted. It's not pure. Well, guess what? In your life, is there a smidge of compromise in your life? You think that's pleasing to the Lord? I'm not saying salvation by works here, folks. What I'm saying is by faith we're saved. We're walking in Him. You know, in James it says that faith without works is dead. And if the fruit of your life is wicked, if the fruit of your life is nothing but compromise, if you don't, if you don't overcome, in fact, Revelation talks about where those that overcome will end up in heaven. If you're not overcoming on a consistent basis, there's no fruits of the Spirit working in your life, my friend. I don't know what's going to happen to you if you were to die right now. According to scriptures, you're lukewarm and He's going to spew out of His mouth. Right? And will He have mercy? I wouldn't put my faith in anything but the Word of God. I wouldn't put my faith in my own beliefs or thought system and saying, He'll let me in. I'm good enough. You know, it's mostly a cookie that probably tastes pretty good, but there's a smidge of poop in it. Folks, you need to get that poop out of your cookie dough. You need to get that compromise out of your life. And I'm preaching to me too. This applies to everyone. How on fire for God are you? And the last point here, since we don't know who's going to die and when, take every opportunity to share the gospel. You don't know if that person you're talking to, that person you work with, that person you're next to, we don't know if they're going to die tomorrow. Maybe God has them in your life right at that moment for a specific purpose. Now, it is possible that this person has heard the gospel, and they're always going to be held accountable because, no one dies without having some sort of revelation of the gospel. Even across the other side of the world, they have an idea of some sort of gospel of Jesus Christ before they die. And they're going to be held accountable for what they know to be right. Even those in heathen nations that have never heard the gospel, they have it written, the law is written on their heart. They know. So, but on the other side of that, if God puts someone in your path and you're supposed to share the gospel, I'm supposed to share the gospel with them, I'm talking to you, Don. That's going to impact you on Judgment Day as well. So how real is your faith? And how hot are you? That's the question, people. Anyways, God bless you. It's early January 2019. Thank you for watching. Please like the video. I got more coming out. If you're still watching this, leave a comment below. I will respond. Take care. God bless.